What did Jesus say, and how do we even know he said these things? For many Christians, the red lettering in the Bible often seems to be proof enough. Perhaps you think, that's all I need, just to cite some proof text that Jesus said or did these things. It might seem convincing at first glance. But I've always found this approach puzzling, especially since Christians today generally agree that early Christians sometimes invented sayings attributed to Jesus. And what do I mean? Well, consider the Gospel of Thomas. It isn't celebrated by Christians worldwide as an authentic record of Jesus' sayings. Instead, it's often seen as an example of people adding to the narrative to promote their own theological agendas. If we don't critically analyze these texts, we're left with an uncritical approach to the question. Without a critical analysis, we can't reasonably determine what Jesus likely said, or even assess whether he existed at all. For Christians, this means we can't establish that Jesus actually said X, Y, or Z. And for skeptics, it does nothing to address the concerns of mythicists who reject Jesus' existence outright. If the goal is to understand Jesus, his words, and his legacy, how could any rational person simply accept a just so story? Why is it often taken for granted that the critical work has already been done for us? Because if you're confident in your beliefs, we want to hear from you, and we want to know why you know. The show starts now. Welcome, everybody. Today is January 12th, 2025. I am JMike, and joining me today, I'm extremely excited. A friend of mine, new recent host addition, Justin from the Deconstruction Zone, otherwise known as Deconstruction Justin. How are you doing, brother?
Great. I'm so pleased to be here, man. I'm having a good time connecting offline with you, and I'm going to have a great time connect here on the Atheist Experience.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. Do you, for some people that maybe didn't get to catch the episode you were on, do you want to kind of give a background into what you do? And
Yeah, I'm an ex-Christian, and I've been in the debate space for a little over a year now. Kind of started on TikTok. My background is in biblical studies. I've got a bachelor's degree and an MDiv from very good accredited institutions. But it was through the critical study of the Bible I came to realize that it just simply doesn't stand up to scrutiny. It's not true. Jesus isn't the Messiah. And so I think human beings do better when we believe things that are true. So I'm now a preacher of what I think is true, which is that Jesus was not the Messiah.
I'm dropping bombs already. Great. So if you disagree with Justin and you think that Jesus is the Messiah, we want your call. We want you to call in. We have open lines. But I want to remind everybody before we get to the calls that the Atheist Experience is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. Every week we do a Share Your Experience segment, and last week we gave you the question, if I can pull it up right. Last week we asked you, complete the sentence. I hope the Bible at least got blank right. And here are three of our favorites chosen by Johnny P. Angel. Whoa, man, okay. So we got number 3, we got X Million. I hope the Bible's right that God will make my prized axe head float. I miss it. So beautifully sharp gunmetal gray. That's great. Number 2, we got Old and Tired Skater. I hope the Bible at least got the page numbers right. Got to start somewhere, right? Yeah, I guess. And number 1, Chuck Gatos. I like that name. I hope that the Bible at least got God, what's the difference? God resurrecting Jesus right. In every movie, things don't go well when something else does the resurrecting. All right. Thank you so much for all of those responses. This week, we are asking, what would Jesus do? And I'm going to put Justin on the spot. So what would Jesus do? Wrong answers only.
Well, I came up with 2 that were pretty short. First is fulfill any messianic prophecies. He definitely didn't do that. And the second is flirt clandestinely with a woman at a well and pretend like he's not already risen.
Yeah. You got this quick. So it's all that schooling, right? That was what it was all for you to make the jokes here at this time.
My investment's coming to fruition.
Yeah, exactly. We are excited for everybody, or for the next week, for everybody to share their answers. Just put them in the comments below. Don't put them in the live chat. I've seen some people do that as well, and I think it'd be best if you put them where everybody will see it forever. Because if it doesn't go up there, at least people can go to that video and they can read your comment. So before we get our first, actually, let's just go to calls. Let's break into calls. That's what everybody wants, right? So we're going to go to Chuck in Hawaii, who wants to talk about how the ACA hosts sometimes sound like they support Christianity. Okay. I'm interested on that.
Hello?
Can you hear us?
Oh, there we go.
Hello?
Hey.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, you're on.
Oh,
So you want to
okay.
do you want to explain to us what you mean? Do you have any specific examples, or because I'm not really sure what you mean supports Christianity? That could mean a lot, I feel like.
Well, generally, you guys don't say absolutely you do not believe in a God. You simply say, Matt used to always say that there is no proof that he does not exist, and so he doesn't really say an actual factual there is no God.
I mean, I've said that on the show. I've said that several times on the show. My view is that there aren't any gods, but I don't give a deductive proof or an argument for that. I don't think that that's going to convince a theist. They're just going to deny a premise. So I do it more on like a worldview comparison, that I just think regardless of how you kind of structure the God hypothesis, there's a favorable indifference hypothesis. But so that's not true.
Well, I mean, you don't generally when you talk sometimes.
Well, first off, Chuck, why does it matter? I'm just curious. Why does it matter? Like if somebody declares that if they just, because they're giving you their honest position, like, hey, I don't know if God exists, or I just don't believe God exists, or I think like God doesn't exist. What I'm not understanding like what you're getting at. What's the problem?
Well, it's just the idea of atheists in your organization anyway. Most of the atheists there in your organization are Christians before that they've dropped off Christianity and dropped out of it, but they seem to kind of support it, because I was speaking against it quite a bit a couple of weeks ago, but they kind of got ticked off at me and mad because I was telling them that Jesus himself is the devil, and the religion itself is evil of Satan, and so the Christians who had used to be Christians in your organization, they seem to get kind of mad about the idea of somebody.
You're giving us a lot of vague kind of answers here, so I'm not really. Really
Chuck,
confused on the productivity here.
Are you a Christian, ex-Christian, theist, deist? What's your position?
I grew up in a church, I guess, but I don't think I've ever really been sucked into it too much, because God was after me. Jehovah is the real God, the God of the Bible, and that's what I'm with.
So you're a Christian?
No, Christianity is a false religion. They worship the devil. They actually worship the devil.
Now I'm even more confused.
Christians.
Are you practicing Judaism?
No.
I'm crazy. I just heard him say he follows Jehovah.
Yeah, I'm really confused.
Did I misunderstand what you said?
Well, that's the God of the Bible, is Jehovah, spelled YHVH. That is the God of the Bible. The Christians do not worship Jehovah. The Christians worship the God they call Jesus.
Right. So the New Testament is true, but the Old Testament, the New Testament is not true, but the Old Testament is true?
No. What I'm saying is there are two gods in the Bible. One is Jehovah, who is not a Trinity, and the other God is Christian God, Christian, who is a Trinity. and he is actually the devil.
Okay, so the Trinity is evil, and Jehovah is the true God.
Yes.
And what can you support this hypothesis with, biblically speaking?
Oh, the Bible. Just look at the Bible. The Bible is just all through the Bible is this God, YHVH.
Justin asked you for something specific. You don't just say the Bible. That's literally his question was, does you have anything biblical to support? You just said the Bible.
Well, that is the Bible. That is the Bible, the God of the Bible, Jehovah.
Okay.
YHVH. That is the God of the Bible.
Is
Jehovah.
Jesus the Son of God?
He is not. Huh?
Is Jesus the Son of God?
No. Jesus is the devil. Jesus is the false.
If the New Testament's not true, then how do you know that Jesus is any of these things you're claiming? Because supposedly, like, your idea that Jesus is anything would need to be supported by the New Testament text somehow. That's the only information you have about him.
The religion, Christianity, is a Trinity. Three fathers.
Chuck, I'm putting you on mute. If you don't answer a direct question, I'm just gonna move on. I'm just not. This is not interesting at all to me. It's just like really confusing. Just help clean it up by answering a direct question, please. I'm getting mildly frustrated. So, Justin, do you want to ask again?
Yeah, according to Matthew 8:29, Jesus is the Son of God. When he's confronted by the demons, they ask him, "What have you to do with us, Son of God?" So, is the New Testament true? Because you're basing Jesus as being like this antithesis to Yahweh on the New Testament text. So I'm trying to figure out, do you believe the New Testament is true and you just have a unique perspective of how you interpret it, or the New Testament is just not true?
Well, actually, the New Testament, there's two parts to it. There's first the story of this son of Mary. His name is not Jesus. His name is Joshua. But
I know
there's another guy who comes along named Paul, and he brings along this religion, worship of the devil.
Are the Gospels true?
Christianity. Well, I don't know. It may be, but the story about this guy, the son of Mary, is true.
And where do we find the story about this guy from Mary?
In the Bible, in the New Testament.
But you just told me the New Testament's not true.
No. Jesus, this guy, his name is not Jesus. Jesus.
Okay, what his name is. I'm trying to figure out what you believe about the New Testament. So either the Gospels are true or they're not. Is it a yes or a no? They're true.
Well, pretty much true. Yeah, I would say they're pretty much true. But
okay, so in Matthew 8, when the demons declare that Jesus is the Son of God, and then others, like in Matthew 14, he's declared as being the Son of God. Is he legitimately the Son of God?
Well, it doesn't say that. It says that he is the everlasting Father.
It says he is the Son of God. Matthew 8:29. Matthew 8:29 says it.
I don't know what it says.
Suddenly they shouted, "What have you to do with us, Son of God? Have you come to torment us before the time?" Even the demons know that Jesus is the Son of God, according to the New Testament. There's dozens of references in the Gospels of Jesus being the Son of God. They even taunted him on the cross. If you're the Son of God, come down from the cross. Satan taunted him in the desert when he was tempting him. If you are the Son of God, turn these stones into bread. The New Testament is pretty clear that he is, in fact, the Son of God.
Oh, this guy is the everlasting Father. He is not the Son of God. God has no son.
So then the Gospels are wrong, right?
No, not the whole thing.
Okay, how do you determine what parts are right and what parts are wrong?
Sit down and read it. You should be able to see it.
Wait, hold on.
You can read.
Okay, but reading it doesn't signify like this is the right part and this is the wrong part, right? There's some analysis to be done. Would you agree?
Well, yeah, it's probably that that Jehovah is going to have to.
By the way, it's like weird for you to say. It's weird for you to say read it and then like you were very confident about this position and then Justin read something to you that you didn't know about. So
I didn't.
I'm a little confused.
But I can talk about it.
All right. Justin, do you want to...
Jehovah is the everlasting
How do you
Father.
know that even Jehovah is real? We already know that you don't believe in Jesus because you just told me the New Testament's not true. You pick and choose. Is everything in the Old Testament true?
Huh?
Can the Old Testament be trusted? If I open up my Old Testament, the book that tells us about Yahweh, and I read it, can I be assured that everything in that is true?
You're not reading a Yahweh there.
Oh my God! Chuck, next time you don't answer a question, I'm moving on. The audience is going to celebrate, so let's just please give yourself a favor here.
All you really need to know is Jesus is the devil, and you're a worshiper of the devil.
All right. I'm glad that you got to get that sentence out.
He's stuck on a loop.
I'm really not interested in that, Chuck. Please get it together. Chuck, come on. Oh my God. Welcome to the Atheist Experience. We're starting off hot today, everybody, with Chuck and the Jesus is Devil. And I don't know what's going on, but I do know that I have some announcements for you guys. Before we get to this next call. So I do want to say that if you like to support us, you can send us super chats and we will read them on the air during or right after the calls and towards the end if we miss them. I know last time I was on, I kind of screwed up and I had to like go through them at the end. So apologies to anybody that sent a super chat while I was on. I'm learning to be better at this. So if you send us our super chats, we'll be happy to read them for you. And if you also want to support us, you can check out all of our podcasts in audio form at tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. There you can listen to all the latest shows from the Atheist Experience, Talk Heathen, Truth Wanted, the nonprofits, and the ACA wants you to know what is going on in your community. So you can head to www.atheist-community.org, where you can learn about the organization itself, its policies, and how you can get involved. And the people behind all of this that we want to give a big shout out to is the crew. So let's get the crew up there and give everybody a big thanks and smooch, a little virtual smoochy roochie. There we go. Look at Greg's face. That's great. All right, we are going to get on to the next caller, which I think we have a theist. Mike in South Carolina wants to ask Justin a question. Wants to know if there are any books in the Bible that you think are true.
Well, I think that the question assumes that the contents of a book is completely true or completely false. But I think there's a lot of books in the Bible that are like purporting to tell historical events, and we can verify some of those historical events. But that doesn't mean everything in that book is true. Like we know in the book of 2 Kings, when it talks about the siege of Jerusalem, or we, read about in Isaiah chapter 8, and also in 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles about the Assyrian armies coming in and invading the Ephraimite territories. We know that those things happened because we've got like writings from Babylon, writings from Assyria, Ashurbanipal, we have inscriptions from the palaces of Ashurbanipal and the other Mesopotamian kings showing Israelites, people from the land, literally being taken captive and people being flayed alive because war was pretty grisly back then. So like to say that everything in the book is true would be false, even though some things are true. For example, 1 Kings chapter 6 says that 480 years prior to the building of Solomon's temple, the Israelites left Egypt. The Exodus was then 480 years prior to that. Well, the beginning of the temple was about 970 BCE, which means that the Exodus had to have been in the middle of the 1400s. But it couldn't have been in the middle of the 1400s because it says in Exodus chapter 1 that the Pharaoh, they built the storehouses of Pithom and Ramses. And it says in the latter portion of Genesis that Ramses is most likely associated as the pharaoh, but Ramses didn't live into the 1200s. He reigned from like 1279 to 1225. So there are some things in some of these historical books that are true, and there are some that are not. Do I believe that an angel of Yahweh came down and slaughtered a couple 100,000 people while the Israelites were sleeping, and they woke up in the morning and found all the dead bodies? No, I don't believe that.
So, Mike, are you with us?
Hey, I'm just taking it all in. Thanks.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a lot to take in, but yeah, feel free to respond to Justin.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not as much a Bible scholar as Justin is, but I'm trying. You guys, I guess inadvertently, you kind of inspire me because you bring up stuff, and I'm like, oh wow, and I check into it, and so far, these things I've checked into. When you really dig into it, it makes more sense than the way at least it was presented. You do some superficial presentations. I'm not saying, I guess I am saying you kind of slant it in a certain way and then it sounds good and then you check into it. It's like, well, it could be, or it could be the way it is written kind of thing. So that's why I'm just looking at different instances. For example, Justin, I was listening to you on another show and you talked about the bear attacking those 42. We think they're kids. We don't know. That one.
It caused them.
You presented it.
It calls them little children.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And even if it was like young men, because I have a pastor friend of mine who I've talked on the phone about this with, and he'll say, well, it says like young men. It doesn't like he just does this move. And Justin, you're familiar with this person, but they make this kind of excuse. And I try to like, it's crazy to me because it's like, wait, so are you just now saying God like killed somebody for the baldy thing? And it like, does this make it like this makes it okay now? I'm trying to understand your view. So I don't know why you want to make that move. It's like whether it's the children or it's God, having this like curse in the command of God for these bears to come out. Like I'm not really understanding like how that's a good thing.
Right. Because they're definitely little children.
Yeah,
and they're behaving like little children. Right.
So they say get out of here, baldy. Like literally.
Yeah. And then what Justin said was, hey, if you had a bunch of kids bothering you, like in a classroom, would that be worthy of them getting mauled to death by bears? And then they're like, no, that's not entirely accurate as far as what happened. At least we don't know that it was children. And then also the fact there was 42.
Well, it does say they were children. The Hebrew word na'ar means youth, and katan in Hebrew, which is used there, means little or insignificant or very young. So they were children. So na'ar katan is a little child.
That we don't actually. It can be interpreted as that. It can also be interpreted. It uses those same words. That's why I dug into it. I was like, well, that doesn't sound good. I'm thinking 5-year-olds, 8-year-olds. But it referred to Solomon, the exact phrasing when he was 20 years old, when he took leadership as far as being king. So
Solomon refers to himself idiomatically as having the countenance of a young child. It's an idiomatic expression in the way that he's using it. He was definitely not described by the narrator as being a little child. He called himself like a little child.
And Mike, can I
I'm just saying that the words. Go ahead.
I just want to ask you. I'm just curious. We can get right back to this, but I'm over here in a different land right now, and like the whole like conversation, and I'm sitting there thinking, if you we take your interpretation, do you think like a good thing occurred? I'm just wondering what you think there. Like we just say it's like young men or something. Does that make it okay?
Yeah. That doesn't sound good. Can I finish? But I'm going to agree with you, and then I'm going to explain. Can I explain after I agree with you?
Of course, yeah. I just was making sure you were answering that part.
It doesn't sound good the way it's presented. It's like, hey, somebody's insulting so-and-so. Okay, maybe they're 20 years old.
In fact, what we'll do, if the producers can, real quick, Mike, if the producers can, if they have it ready, we'll even give you a minute, and you can go interrupt it on it. And what just for everybody, we're about to have somebody defend this obscene slaughtering with like bears that were commanded in the curse of God. And we've changed it now to like young men, but now we're going to show him justify and say why it's a good thing. Go ahead.
Okay, I just did a simple search of this, and it says the Hebrew adjective "qatan" means small, little, or young. And then we're thinking, how young is this? And then it's the same. It actually is narkotan. That means, little kids maybe, but it also refers to Solomon when he was 20 as a narkotan. It's NA-whatever-ARQATAN. So you got Solomon as a 20-year-old. You got Hadid the Edomite. That's 1 Kings 11:17. Same thing. He was a mature rebel, but he was called same thing, narkotan. So we got an age issue. We got a number issue as well. 42 were killed. That means there were more than 42. It's like this is a mob. Also, the geography it was right around Bethel, which was, they were praying to Baal. So these refer to them being servants. Yeah, so he could have been hit by a mob of a bunch of priest servants that were young, and they're mocking him, and then he's like,
I didn't actually, in 2 Kings 24:25, I think it is. Is that right? It's off the top of my head. Is that right, Justin? 2
Kings 2:24 and 25.
2:24. That's right. I didn't read that part in there. Could you show me where it explicitly says that, or is that just you, Mike, adding this shit in there?
He's definitely adding it. Yeah.
Yeah, because this just sounds like a whole bunch of horse shit to me.
I'm adding this stuff in. I'm adding this in just I did a simple search on, hey, could you explain this a little bit? And
okay. So let's just be clear. The text doesn't say it, but Mike, let's just be clear. The text doesn't say it, right?
Well, the text says narkotan, and the question is,
okay, I'm not on that. Look, I don't know why you're on that. I don't know why you're on that. I want to get back to that. I do, but I'm sitting there going okay, let's just give you all the toys to play with, right? It's like young men, or it's a man, or whatever. It's an old dude. Okay, I want to know how you justify this, curse in the name of God, where these bears come out and maul these people. You're trying to justify that to me, right? But then in your justification, you just sounded like you just brought a whole bunch of stuff that's not explicit in the Bible, right? It doesn't sound like you're doing any critical biblical analysis here. It's just kind of the analysis of Mike to make it fit because I already believe this. That's my impression as somebody who doesn't believe this stuff. Could you understand my perspective?
Yeah,
or do I sound wild?
This is when I first heard it, I was like, hey, I think Justin's got a point. God was harsh. And then you do the research and you find out he was right next to where it could have been a bunch of priests worshiping Baal, and then they came out to harass him, and who knows what else. The fact that there's 42, if there was 4, this would make a lot of sense.
They could have been worshiping anybody. I don't really understand how that's warranting to just having those actions take place. But regardless, you keep saying it could have been, right? But there's nothing. So what you're actually telling me implicitly is it's not the case that I could justify this, because I'm saying it could have been the case. I'm not saying it's likely the case based on this evidence, or maybe what scholars might use, right? It's okay, well, we have a good reason in antiquity to think that this could be the case because of that. It just sounds like you're just kind of just saying words. I don't know why I would believe you.
This isn't my research. This is I looked it up on 1517.org, and somebody wrote a paper on it. This isn't me. And okay, I was like, wow, what happened? And it's you would have been right next to Bethel.
No, I understand. I understand you're taking it out. I understand you've taken it. I want to pass it back to Justin. I just was really kind of struck by this point because I talked to a pastor friend of mine, and he's done this thing where it's not a really young boy, and I'm like, I think there's an issue there. That's definitely Justin's territory, right? But let me just grant that and move forward and see how you because you have this holier than thou morality, and I'm trying to understand this, right? I'm just this peon trying to understand this top tier, top dog morality, and I'm seeing these bears getting sent for people worshiping some other thing. I've yet to see something egregious that warrants these bears being fucking sent at them. So I'm not really sure what it just seems odd to me, man. I don't think that anybody in their right mind could justify something like this I don't think that somebody in their right mind could sit here and justify something like this unless they believed in some religion. That's the only way people do this.
Yeah. And this is not actually an isolated incident. God sends lions on people elsewhere that hardly did anything wrong. We can get to that next. So what we have here is in a text is we have clearly a group of little children being little children. You could even call them teenagers. I don't care. And the fact that they were making fun of this man I don't think at all would warrant them being mauled by bears. They pose no imminent threat to this person. They did no bodily harm to this person.
We don't know that.
And we do know
We
that
don't know
because
that.
because the text says that they're little
don't know
children. Are you afraid of little children?
No. I'm afraid of 20-year-olds, gangs, teenagers. Yes.
You'd be
Yeah.
deathly afraid if they
42 of
were
them,
calling you
at least.
bald. You'd be like shuddering in your boots.
That's what was recorded. We don't know what else happened. That's what I'm saying is we don't know the full story.
Right. So you're going to add
Just
stuff to it
part
to
of
make
it
it more
was funny.
palatable.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you just add stuff that you
No, I'm not-
like to
I'm
the
not trying to
story to make it more powerful, you can make any story plausible.
Yeah.
I can add stuff to it
Real
too.
short
We're
story.
really good. Humans are really good at lying to themselves. We're
Yeah,
really good at that.
Let me add something to the story. As it turns out that just before they met Elisha, these boys ran by a guy who was bald and it was making fun of all the kids for being kids. And so next time they saw a bald guy, they called him Baldy and made fun of him back because they were a little upset about their previous encounter. See how adding stuff to the story can make things go either way?
I'm not trying to add anything to it. I'm saying this is a possibility. Only one possibility was presented. It's like little children called this guy name and then he had him killed. And that doesn't sound right.
But they're described
so I dug
as
into
little
it. It's like,
children
well, wait a minute,
in the
maybe they weren't little
narration.
children.
And
What
it's
is it?
not being described as an idiomatic usage. In 2 Kings chapter 2, when Solomon refers to himself as a little child, he also says, was it 2 Kings chapter 2? Sorry, it wasn't 2 Kings chapter 2. I forget where it is. Chapter 3, 1 Kings chapter 3. He calls himself a little child, and he says, I don't even know how to come in and go out. Do you think that King Solomon didn't know how to come in and go out? Or do you think that maybe this is an idiomatic usage of the phrase so that he's essentially demeaning himself before his God? He's lowering himself before his God. This type of groveling is typically how people interacted with both kings and divine entities. You lower yourself as much as humanly possible.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's
I
why
guess
if
being
you-
humble,
If you read
throw
the
that out
Amarna
there.
tablets, you'll see people addressing the Pharaoh. There's a bunch of Canaanite city kings, petty kings, that are addressing Pharaoh because they're in need of chariots and archers to fight off the brigands that are in the land. And they start almost all of the letters by saying, I bow on my face on the ground before you, 7 times on my face, 7 times on my back. I am the dirt between your toes. This is how you address people in the ancient world, is you diminish yourself and you ingratiate yourself to the person or the being of much higher status. So when King Solomon is talking here about himself not even knowing how to come in or go out and being like a small child, you're not supposed to read the text and think that he actually was a small child. This is an idiomatic usage. And you just have to read the text for what it says and not read some goofy website trying to justify God sending bears to kill a bunch of kids.
Well, how many is a bunch?
I don't care how many there are. They're kids.
I cannot believe that was asked.
Not only are they kids, but they didn't cause any harm to the individual. They made fun of the individual.
We don't know that.
And like you find this, you find this hard to believe. You said earlier you find this like hard to believe it would be that case. Like, do you not know like that God's commands to slaughter like Amalekite children in 1 Samuel 15:3? This is like par for the course, bro. I don't understand this. Like, how is this news? Like, this is expected on the God hypothesis that you endorse.
Well, at first glance, it looks like just a couple of kids, and then you're like, "Holy crap, 42!" And then how old were they?
What are you talking about?
They
They literally went
really
they went and slaughtered all of the Amalekite infants. How many do you think that is? You think that's more than 42?
We're back.
Yeah.
The Amalekites. Have you got anything besides Amalekites? Although you're saying they were innocent. I didn't want to get into the
They're
Amalekites.
babies. Yeah, they're fucking innocent. They're infants. Yes, they're innocent. You think that the infant was guilty of something? What crime? What did they do?
He bit that
I promise
nipple
you
a little
guys,
too
I
much.
will look up the Amalekites, and then I'll have an answer for you. I will next time I.
Okay.
God sends animals to plague people who have done only minor infractions all the time. In 1 Kings chapter 13, there's a story of a prophet who goes out to deliver a word of condemnation, and God tells him not to eat or drink or to dine with anybody while he's out. And so he goes out, and on his way back, another prophet of God meets him and said, the Lord sent me to tell you to dine with me tonight, to stay with me, accept my hospitality. And so he goes, okay, it sounds legit. He goes back with the guy. The next morning, God says, oh, you really fucked up now. He sends a lion to go kill his own prophet because his prophet was listening to one of the other prophets. This is not a God that is like looking out for mankind. The God that is described in the Bible is vengeful against mankind. In fact, in Deuteronomy, he literally says, as I delighted in glorifying you, I will also delight in bringing harm to you. I can grab that reference.
God. I mean,
Yeah.
Justin, I actually was curious if you had a top one or two things that made you like, I'm done. I am done. I'm just curious for Justin.
Yeah, great question. But before I answer that, the verse I was referring to was because people are going to ask Deuteronomy 28:63. God says, just as I took delight in making you prosperous and numerous, so the Lord will take delight in bringing you to ruin and destruction. So God literally takes delight in ruining his own people. But that presents a contradiction because Ezekiel says that I have no pleasure in the death of the wicked. We can move on to that. The thing that took me, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, was studying the Old Testament and reading what it actually says about the Messiah, and realizing that not only did Jesus not fulfill any of those messianic expectations, not even one, the ones that are ascribed to him in the New Testament are just out of context quotations. Half of them aren't even prophecies. Some of them aren't even quoted correctly. Some of them are quoting texts in contradiction. And you really have to like bend credulity to look at these and say, oh yeah, that was even a prophecy, much less the ones that are prophecies aren't even fulfilled. Zechariah 9, that is a legitimate prophecy. But if you bothered to read verse 10 after verse 9, it says that he's going to cut off the war horse from Ephraim and the battle bow. He didn't cut off any war horses. He didn't cut off any battle bow. He didn't command the nations and collect Israel and bring them back to live in the land in safety. That's what the king is supposed to do. That's what the Messiah is supposed to do. So until he sits on the throne, he is not the Messiah.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like the Jewish aspect, which is Jesus didn't come in as a leader and a warrior, but he is supposed to come back and be a leader and a warrior. Well, he'll be in control of the world when he comes back, says the Bible.
Right, but he was supposed to do that when he was here the first time.
Yeah,
and he's not the final sacrifice, because the same prophets that predicted him coming declare that there's going to be offerings and sacrifices of Moses still happening when he comes back. Ezekiel 45 says it. Jeremiah chapter 33, Isaiah chapter 56, verse 21 says that there's going to be priests and Levites in the new heaven and new earth. They're going to be giving offerings and sacrifices forever, according to Jeremiah 33. So this idea that Jesus was the final sacrifice doesn't line up with what the Old Testament actually says. Verse 17 of Jeremiah 33 says, thus saith the Lord, David shall never lack. David's the Messiah here in this passage. David shall never lack a man to sit on the throne of the house of Israel, and the Levitical priests shall never lack a man in my presence to offer burnt offerings, to make grain offerings, and to make sacrifices for all time. This is incompatible with the New Testament view of Jesus Christ as being the final sacrifice, according to Hebrews chapter 7, and replacing the Levitical priesthood with his supposed priesthood of Melchizedek.
So you're saying there's going to be sacrifices in heaven?
That's what the Bible says, yes.
There's no reason. There's no reason.
I know.
When they say for all time, they mean all time on earth. I mean, it sounds
you
like
found the contradiction
on earth, and then
yes.
heaven. There's
you found the contradiction.
Speaking in heaven as well. I'll take a look at it. Jeremy 33:17.
Jeremiah 33. You can also go to Ezekiel 37 and Isaiah 66. Isaiah 66:21 says, I will take some of them as priests and Levites, says the Lord, for as the new heavens and the new earth I will make shall remain before me, says the Lord, so shall your descendants and your name remain. From new moon to new moon, from Sabbath to Sabbath, All flesh shall come to worship before me, says the Lord. And if you go to Isaiah 56, he describes what that looks like. The foreigners who joined themselves to the Lord, he says, they will bring their offerings and sacrifices into the temple, and they'll be welcome in the temple just like the Gentiles, as long as they hold fast to his covenant. And so we have no indication in the Old Testament whatsoever that the offerings and sacrifices are going to go away. If you go to chapter 40 of the book of Ezekiel, you'll get the vision for the new heaven, new earth, the new Jerusalem, in fact. And it talks about the offerings and sacrifices that are going to occur in this new realm when we have the new Jerusalem. And even says the prince is called the Messiah here in the latter half of Ezekiel, says the prince himself will join with the Israelites in offering the burnt offerings, in offering the grain offerings. So this idea that because Jesus came, the sacrifices are going to cease simply isn't true. And the book of Deuteronomy says that the law is forever. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 1 and 2, and Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 1 and 2, and also elsewhere in Deuteronomy, it says that this law you will obey all the days that you live on the earth. So the New Testament stands in stark contradiction to everything the Old Testament ever said about the end times.
And that was your primary beef. You're like, hey, look, this doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Contradictions. Gotcha. All right. I could talk to you a lot, but I got to do some research. You guys refer me on. Hey, do me a favor and go after like Mormons, Jehovah Witnesses. Yeah.
We want to talk about any beliefs people, any God claims that people have, or kind of supernatural claims, spiritual claims from more of my previous background. Those are the stuff I'm interested in. So I'll take it from any stripe. But Mike, it sounds like you're looking into this, and we do appreciate that you're coming back with different stuff to talk about. So thank you. Even though I wildly disagree with kind of moral positions that both of us have, but that would be a different conversation. And speaking of,
JMike, just so I can do for my homework for you, JMike, it's you got a moral problem with God, right? You think he kills people?
No, I've never believed in God. I've never been a Christian. I mean, like my spiritual phase might have been weird with like a pantheism thing. I don't really know how to distinguish that. It wasn't really well thought out, so it's not really worth thinking back on in a sense. But no, mine has anything to do with that. In fact, I criticize a lot of atheists that I talk to online that will do this emotional move where it feels like there's a better route to go than to do that, to get that person to kind of go. So sometimes like I don't like that tactic depending on how it's doing it. But yeah, like when I hear that there's a justification for like the children killing children, or me and Justin are stuck on the unaliving thing, so it's like really hard to say the word out loud without feeling like
I know TikTok has ruined our vocabulary.
The stream's gonna get taken down immediately, and then everyone's like, "What happened?" But yeah, anyway, so I think when we put it in like this kind of framework, for me, it's like I can obviously show someone my like moral frustrations there, but no, I've just never accepted the proposition that God exists, like a lot of other people probably listening, or they come to the position that they just don't believe God. And then mine went further. It just went, well, I think that there are better like philosophical arguments that explain the world around us, and they deal more with like an indifference than some type of intention. So I'm more on the indifference type of route than I am some guided intention. I've always been kind of keen to that view. It just makes more sense to me. So no, not an emotional thing, but you know, I do think that God is the God that you believe in, I think is a horrible, I was going to say something, but I'll say he's a horrible person. We'll just leave it there. All right.
No,
Mike, thank you so much.
I mean, if he does exist.
Well, I think he'd be a horrible piece of shit, but you know, I might be, you know, just piling it on right now. And I don't want to do that to you because you sound like you're reading into this, and that's very important. So I don't want to stray you away from that.
No, it's all good. It should withstand skepticism, and that's why I find it really interesting that people were Christians and they're not, and then people aren't and then they are. That's very interesting to me.
Yeah, I find that fascinating too.
That's all I got.
So I agree. I 100% agree. As someone divorced from that, I find that very fascinating. Thank you, Mike, for your time. I got to rush out here to get some super chats in. We got, oh man, you're testing me with the first one. Wow. Stasatesti Satostu, 666 euros. Praise Doug. And we got Aaron. This is This is a friend of mine, Aaron. So thank you, Aaron, so much. We got Aaron sending $20 for. Sorry, I thought I said was gifting a membership. Sorry, new member, $20. JMike and Justin, the power team. Love you, brothers. Let's effing go. Praise Doug. Yes, I agree. Praise Doug. We got
Doug is watching over us, friends. He's here with us.
I'm forgetting Forrest's. Is it Carl? I think it's Carl. I'm better. There should be a better friend with Forrest, but Doug and Carl, I think. If someone in the comments can help me out here. It's been a while. I haven't done my praising, obviously. I'm still a heathen. So I'll get on the Doug train. Okay. Godless Heathen, $10. I'm incredibly happy to catch this live stream. Huge fan of JMike. I didn't just read that and pretend like that. You know what I'm saying? They actually said that. Now, huge fan of JMike, AXP in general, and a recent subscriber to Justin's YouTube channel. That's awesome. Love what you do. And praise Doug. Yay. Praise Doug. And we got Have You Prime, $5. ACA fan for years, and I'm so glad to see Justin back. Praise Doug. We're getting a lot of praise Doug. 10 more euros for praise Doug by GoLock420. We got Prince of Atheism, which is $6.66 donation, which they say really wish people would understand how to explain their point rather than just restate it. Yes, the Chuck part really resonates with me there. So we got Laren Misha Sidai. Hopefully I said that right. Apologize. No message, but they sent $1. We thank you so much. And we got, man, you guys are filling in the super chats. Thank you all so much for supporting us. We got Nero, $5 super chat. Welcome to the ACA, Justin. This is my first exposure to you, but I'm loving the vibe already, and I'm happy you found your way free from religion. We got Laren again. So for $5, they have a message this time. So Jesus is the devil, and the devil and Jesus met up in the desert, and they did the Spider-Man pointing thing at each other. Yeah, that's basically Chuck's view. Yeah, that's what it seemed like. Johannes Brahms, hopefully I'm saying that right, $5. Words don't mean words when you need to apologize for child murder or whatever horrible shit you believe to make you morally superior to others. Yes, I agree.
Every time. Yep. Yeah. Defense number one. These words can't mean what they actually mean.
Yep. Marduk 499 super sticker. Pair character lifting some weights. Oh, is that like just literally what the icon is? And I just read it. Pair lifting weights, some weights saying keep it up, or is that really what they submitted? I don't know, but if that's an emoji and I just read it out loud, I feel really stupid. If that's what you said, awesome. Thank you so much. Nero for $5. God blame the total sacrificial Amalekite slaughter on what their ancestors did 200 years before. Come on, Mike, read the book, y'all.
400 years prior, yeah. It was what happened in Exodus chapter 17 when the Amalekites attacked them from behind when they came out of Egypt. Mm-hmm. So God said, I'm going to wipe the memory of Amalek completely out, but I'm going to wait 400 years and do it to people who had nothing to do with the original crime.
Yeah. We got Myron Vaughn Sr. for $2. Miranda Rensberger doesn't age. And we got another Aaron. So I'm going through these quick. We got flooded with a whole bunch of them, and I really, really appreciate that. I'm going to get to these callers as well. We got Aaron gifted. So, okay, I got this right now. Aaron did gift 10 Atheist Experience membership. So big W to Aaron and saving me from making that mistake. I don't know if you guys have noticed, reading sometimes is difficult for me, especially when it's bright light in my face. So thank you for everybody bearing with me and my learning to read. Jenna Green, the last one we got for $5. Watching Justin pin Christians with their own book is my favorite. Hail Doug. So we got a Hail Doug as well. Awesome. Shout out to Doug. Doug the Almighty. All right, and we got I think we could go through this one really quick. At least I can. So I'm going to go to Bill in Pennsylvania. Wants to talk about how to defeat Presup arguments. Well, I've been really waiting for the actual argument that I'm interested in, but what do you have in mind specifically?
Well, I'm an atheist, so I'm just referencing your interview or confrontation with Dawkins several weeks ago, or maybe it was a few years ago, really.
It was probably years ago, yeah.
How long ago it was.
Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't had a conversation since.
You haven't? Do you wish you had?
I've tried. I'll just put it that way. But the spot goes vacant all of a sudden. So that's all I'll say.
Oh, they turn you away. Yeah. That's not surprising. It's just, I've heard somebody pinned Darth down. I was just listening to it today, and they asked him, well, what's your justification? Well, or what's your foundation? What's your ultimate? Well, it's been revealed.
I do want to, Bill, if I can for the call, I don't want to like single any particular person out on this. I'm just not generally like comfortable doing that. Like if I know them or something a little bit, maybe, but like I try not to do that. Maybe I've messed up in the past, but if we can, because I think that the content of the Presup stuff is all like, it's all there. And it won't matter if like, even if I'm mentioning like Van Til or, Bonson or these guys that are like the fathers of it. Would you agree? Or because I just kind of want to see what maybe you have a concern just relative to the Presup stuff. So that way we avoid kind of personally talking about somebody.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, let it be Darth or Saitan Bugengate or whoever.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I want them to have the ability to defend themselves. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Well, any Presup, their foundation is, well, it's been revealed to me. Correct? Yep. Isn't that one of their basic tenets?
100%. My question to that is always, what does reveal mean? I don't really know what that means because I'm revealed things every day. So if it's just some trivial
why doesn't
sense.
everybody just laugh in their face? What do you mean? No, nothing's been revealed to you.
Well, let me like help you because I want to try to get through this just to kind of, because this is a really good topic, I think, to like help people that get online and they might get just bombarded with some like Presup or maybe even just a troll or Poe kind of doing the Presup thing, which exists. So if the best way to tackle this, in my opinion, is ask them straightforwardly for the argument, right? And it's going to be something to the effect of like, God is this necessary precondition for knowledge, God, therefore knowledge kind of idea, right? Or this biconditional statement that you can only have knowledge if and only if, the Christian God exists. What if you like put that out in like in an argument, the first premise is the one that's going to be contentious from atheists. They're going to go, okay, why should I accept if God exists and knowledge exists? Like I think that it could just be true that antecedent, that God, like there could just be no God and I could still have knowledge. In fact, that's the view I hold. So what they have to do when you give you an argument, you can't just go like, okay, well, why is like the premise false, or give me your worldview or justify your stuff. That's not how like arguments work, right? So they have this kind of backwards. And I will use somebody who's a Christian that I'm actually gonna give them a little bit of praise, even though I think they're wrong here, that William Lane Craig, for example, I'm not like the biggest fan, but William Lane Craig doesn't make this mistake. When William Lane Craig gives the Kalam, for example, what we get is an additional arguments for the first and second premises, right? So we'll get something like for the second premise, like that you can't have actual infinities, which I think that this argument's completely wrong. But what he does is, if I came up to him and was like, hey, I don't accept premise 2, there's maybe there's a scientific inquiry we have, and there's not a beginning. And what he wants to do is say, well, hey, look, like, I'm going to rule that out a priori or from the armchair and give this kind of argument that you can just reason to. But that's the point of bringing that up, is that's the step that someone has to do in an argument. What they have to do is, if I don't accept that first premise, they have to take that first premise and make it a conclusion of a new argument and give me new reasons, right? That never happens. You will literally win every Presup conversation you ever have with anybody. Just if you ask them to support the first premise, I don't accept that. Maybe you can get me to Jesus, give me an additional argument, a supplemental argument that allows me to see the reasons to that premise, to that new conclusion. And that will never be done. What will be done is it will be a focus on your worldview. And if you die on the hill for any view, in my opinion, you will be losing the game, because they're stating emphatically that you can only have knowledge if the Christian God exists, nothing else. If I was in that conversation and it just turned out that like, I'm talking with this Presup, like, let me give them all the credit I can. If I'm talking with this Presup and I go, oh man, you know what? After talking to you, I'm really confused about my worldview. I don't know what to believe, this, that, or that. And I'm having an existential crisis right now. But wait a second, you told me about this Jesus thing. And you told me that like, I can only have knowledge if this Jesus thing is true. So let's get back to that thing. We already went to this whole weird segue of showing me that my, like worldview doesn't work or my TV doesn't turn on. Let's see if your TV turns on. You're telling me that it does, right? So now give me that argument. And you'll notice how much of a time waster it would have even been if I granted, that I'm just having this existential crisis and I don't know what's going on, which is way too charitable for me to do. But just to elucidate the point is like, if someone really did that, what the fuck are they going to do? They're going to have to now give that argument and come to Jesus, and they don't have that argument. So that's kind of that's like my 2 cents on it. It's synopsis of Presup and why it's a joke, a complete joke. And that's the tactic that you should take.
Okay.
So, Bill, does that help?
Justin, yes, it does. Yeah, I was focusing on the wrong things here.
No worries. I understand. My brain goes all screwy too, so I get it. Yeah.
Justin, do you regret pissing Darth off in your 30-second confrontation with him when I think you called him Dirt or something? He got his panties in a bunch and just fizzled. Don't you wish? Do you wish you would have had some kind of confrontation or discussion with him? Or
no, not really. I mean, there are some philosophers that I've come in contact with on the other side that are like worth engaging. I've never seen a worthwhile engagement with Darth Dawkins. So I have no, and he's so rude to all of his guests. I don't feel like I owe him anything. So yeah, like if I treat him the way that he treats everybody else and he gets his panty in a twist, I guess that's on him. Maybe he should examine his own behavior.
Well, that's not going to happen.
It's no skin off my back if like these philosophers don't want to come into my live stream, because it might be true that I'm completely like, I don't have epistemic justification for my worldview. That could be true, but it could also be true that they don't have epistemic justification for their worldview. And my goal has always been to, when people come in and they believe in a particular deity, I want to know the justification for that deity, because your deity doesn't exist by proving somebody else's worldview wrong. Like, you could prove evolution wrong, you can prove abiogenesis wrong, you can prove the Big Bang wrong, you can disprove all these scientific theories wrong, and it still wouldn't mean that your God is the answer. You still have to provide the argument for your God being the answer. Your God isn't the answer by default, because any God could be that answer by default, which is why I do Doug, because every argument that they use for their God, I can use for this rock that has googly eyes glued on it. And I have as much philosophical justification for that as they do for their God. So to me, it's supremely uninteresting to engage with philosophy bros on presuppositional apologetics that will never actually get them to defend their actual worldview. They just think, if I can say that your worldview is false, then mine is now true by default. But that's not how things work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they use these buzzwords like the ground of all being and ultimate and stuff like that. How, can't you just come back? How do you know there is anything ultimate? And what's the ground of all being and the source of intelligibility?
Bill, I don't understand this philosophical talk about like grounding and stuff. Like, might make sense to me in some context when I talk to people, but like what I think a lot of people have in mind, I'm just so divorced on this concept of grounding and in that way. And then it also seems to like smuggle in this weird kind of like foundationalism maybe, or like, I don't know. I know there's other precepts that are like coherentists and stuff. So maybe that's not fair depending on how they want to give that analysis. But yeah, I mean, there's something like Justin said that really resonates to me, is like this weird, like, your car doesn't turn on, so mine does kind of thing is like very odd to me. Like, it's like something's gone wrong. Something's like clearly gone wrong here, man. Like, you're like, oh man, I have this awesome sports package and I'm the only one that has this sports package, and like if we go to your house right now, you won't have the sports package. And then like I turn it on or something and like it doesn't come on. They're like, see, I have the sports package on my TV. I'm like, well, hold on, we still got to do like this whole investigation. Like, I got to drive to your house or apartment, we got to see if you got the sports package, right? It's like on its own merits, right? So it's really, really odd. And then you add that like my TV is the only one that has this sports package. In fact, the sports packages can only exist from this unified television set. It's just like, it's just gibberish. It's nonsense. But we're going to move on, Bill, to, I could talk precept all day. Okay. And so I have to put my foot down, or else I will do that. So, but we do appreciate your call,
got
Bill.
a show to do. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, Bill sounds familiar. I feel like I've talked to Bill before. There's two here. They both stick out to me. One, I think you'll have a lot of fun with, Justin. So let's go to John in Canada, who thinks that the LA fires are happening because we sinned against God. So I had to get a little bit prepared. I was going to go initially to that one, and then I was like, well, let's have a little fun first, and then we'll get to this. So, all right, you're on with us, John. So you think that LA fires are happening because we sinned against God? It says you're agnostic, though, so I'm very confused by that.
Yeah, I am agnostic, but I am.
Oh, this is that, John. Okay.
In the fires. Yeah,
John, you're very, very quiet. Can you
Very
get closer
quiet.
to your microphone?
there's a correlation between sin and the fires in LA.
Okay.
It's a sin?
Correlation.
No, we heard you. You said there's a correlation between sin and fire. I think, Justin, you said what is sin?
Yeah.
I said, what is sin? Because
Yeah.
you said you're agnostic. So how do we know what
Exactly.
a sin is? Your God hasn't declared what sins are yet. We don't know what sins are.
Well, the sins are the following: we don't obey God's rules, and the people
Well, what are his rules?
definitely done that. By God. Well, for one thing, you don't go woke. For one thing, that's a sin right there.
No. What are God's rules and how do we know it?
The Ten Commandments. The first one
Oh,
being you have
so you're a Christian and you just don't want to admit it?
well, it's kind
Didn't
of
Jesus say, if you're ashamed to be ashamed of me before man, I'll be ashamed of you before my heavenly Father?
Isn't one of the commandments like bearing false witness too?
Yeah, it's literally in the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, I heard that once. I wasn't sure. I wanted to make sure from an expert here.
Why are Christians so embarrassed to just say they're Christian? I don't understand it.
So, John, we're gonna try again. Can you be honest with us? Are you a Christian? If not, we'll just. I guess we'll try to hear you out here and go through it. I kind of want the urge to hang up on you, but because I don't think it's going to be fruitful.
Fine,
but I
fine.
want to do that to
Okay,
Justin.
fine.
Okay, great.
Okay, I am Christian.
Great.
Okay.
So we started. So
Here's the
you. So hold on. I just want to recap real fast before you go. I just want to recap. This is like the irony was so thick you could like cut it with a knife. It's so great. So this is what happened. You called in, and you talked about like we talked about sin. We asked you what sin is, and there's God's rules. And then like, okay, what are God's rules? 10 Commandments. Okay. Is it true that you just broke one of those rules within like a few seconds of being on the air with us?
Don't change the subject.
It sounds like God's about to send 2 she-bears to take care of you.
We can move on. John, I just want that point to be noted. We'll put a pin in it.
Now, I want to make sure I'm clear on what a sin is, because Paul said, apart from the law, there is no transgression. So, the law of Moses is more than 10 commands, right?
Are.
Okay, so a sin must be more inclusive than just 10 commands. Obviously, people are probably sinning outside of the 10 commandments. Where can we find the rest of the sins?
Okay, I'm going to make this very simple. The reason why the fires are out of control in California.
But where can I find the comprehensive list of sins to not do? Where can I find those?
In the Bible, gentlemen. Now,
Okay, in the Bible. Okay, so all of the commands that God gave to Moses and whatnot, those are the commands that tell us what is bad and what is good, right?
Yes, that is precisely.
Okay, just checking. Now, is it true that the people in California are breaking those laws more than others?
Yes.
Okay, and which sins specifically are they breaking?
Well, for one thing, they're breaking the rule of have you not heard the God made the male and female, and they're embracing the trans ideology and woke.
Wait, what?
And here's the result, gentlemen.
I don't know what you said. It sounded like some transphobic thing is what I heard, is because there's trans people that the California's on fire. That's what I'm hearing. I just want you to understand that you've made like a giant empirical claim here, like that there's this correlation or response. You're never going to meet that burden. So I don't know why we should. I don't know if going down that road's going to be fruitful.
Do all natural disasters come from God?
God sets the stage, the rest happens afterwards.
You're not. Why can you stop acting like you're like Bane from stop being like a villain in a movie or something? God does this forever. Just answer directly. What is this?
That was a yes or no question. Are all natural disasters judgment from God?
Yes.
Okay, then why isn't he like putting judgment on mainland China or Iraq? Like they're not Christian. They're committing all kinds of sin.
Time will come.
Time will come. Okay, John.
United States.
Okay,
The United States was founded on Christianity.
No, I'm gonna drop John. John, I'm not. I should have known it was that John. Sometimes you make mistakes. I don't know. That's really weird. Like villain, their time will come. Like, okay, well, it's like hard to believe when you can't even justify the initial fucking claim that you made about it. So I'm so scared that's God's responsible from God. God, I mean, what a piece of shit thing to say, though, right? Like, you're gonna have some view where you think that there's a correlation between sin and the fires, and when pressed, you can't even justify or give like an analysis of the sin, or better yet, you can't even abide by them yourself. Within 5 seconds, you fuck up. Like, come on, buddy. All right.
It's weird too because wildfires and earthquakes were happening in California long before we inhabited the Americas. So it's weird that like God was punishing California for all the non-binary conforming people hundreds of years before we existed here.
John, do better. Call us back whenever you actually have something that will justify a view. I'm going to check super chats real quick to see if we've got some. Oh, wow. Okay. So we have some more super chats. Awesome. We got from Miranda Rensberger. We got, I age $10. I age like milk. I like the response from Miranda Rensberger never ages. Blind Limey. Shout out to Blind Limey. $10. Can't stay long, but had to step into Bears. Dude, Bears. Yeah. Blind, we love you. I hope you're doing great out there. Oku Bean City. I'm sorry. I don't know how to pronounce that. Gifted 5 Atheist Experience memberships. They're testing me today. Thank you so much for those Atheist Experience memberships. If you were a lucky recipient of that, please shout your thanks out to Oku. Roastaman, $100 MX. Is that Mexican? Thank you so much. I've never... Justin, when and where on Discord server do you take questions from atheists? JMike, do you hang out at the Clubhouse community on politics and religion? I think that's saying. No, I used to like go in there a little bit. I don't really as much. There's a lot of places on Discord are like extremely toxic, and it just got really annoying dealing with, or like having a constant target on your back. It's like, oh, that's the guy, Atheist Experience guy. Let's get him. It just gets a little tiring. So I prefer to go on like TikTok and just do a live or hop on lives. I find that to be more conducive. It's not like really toxic and very trolly and poey, and you're trying to figure out if this person's really giving you a view that they hold or not. So I find more enjoyment on TikTok, but I guess that might be over soon. I don't know.
It seems that way. Yeah.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how this works out in the future. But I'll keep people updated on where to find me outside of this stuff. It's usually just online debate stuff, but maybe I'll make an entrance back in. I don't know. Nomadic Heathen, $5. Justin, please inform Forrest that I have converted from Roland to it's Roland. I said Carl. What? Oh God, I'm so bad. I said Carl. It's Roland. I knew it was Roland. Everybody in that moment was like, "What are you doing, Mike?" Justin, please inform Forrest that I've converted him from Roland to Doug. That's great. Bob, we got $2. Will Doug ever forgive me thinking he was a potato? I don't know, Justin. What do you think?
Doug is all forgiving. He holds no grudges. So nothing to worry about there. And also remember, Doug is not the only god. He's actually okay if you worship other gods like Spanky or Klamadrov. And also be aware that he does have a consort named Sharon. This is Sharon, and the two of them are Doug and Sharon Stone. And we know that these are primordial beings because according to Christians, we've never seen stone form and we've never seen petrified wood form. Therefore, they must be pre-existent.
Yeah. Those are like some of the first things I've like gotten like when I was like younger would see like kind of petrified wood, like all that kind of stuff. Was like always like the internet memes or whatever that would be posting around. Yeah. It's funny, or like the chariots at the end of the bottom of the Red Sea. It's like, and I still get it's funny is you still get those today. It's crazy. I'm
baffled that people believe that. Like I was a teenager the first time I ran into the Ron Wyatt lies, and I saw the pictures of the chariot. Was my first question I asked my dad was like, where did they study these at? Where did they have them? Because they didn't, obviously they had to have pulled them up so they can study them like by actual archaeologists and whatnot. And it turns out they didn't. Nobody went down there and pulled these things up. They're just photos. For all we know, they're just fabricated photos of coral reefs. Yeah, the Duru Pranar site is a very, very interesting. I get that like a lot still. They'd be like, they found Noah's flood, or they found where Noah landed. And I'm like, you understand this is like a very well understood like geological phenomenon. Not even that, like they're surrounding that area. You can find several of these where there's like, from what I understand, there's something that like kind of blocks this runoff and it creates this kind of like shape like this as it goes through, and it just the sediment kind of forms like that. And what's funny is like he had like a geologist come with him, something Baumgartner. People can look this up. You can look up the letter from Baumgartner to about Ron Wyatt, and he was just like, yeah, I like watched this dude like place stuff around and like it's crazy. But well, his own son outed him on the chariot situation because he was handing out coins that he claimed were the evidence of the wreckage in the Red Sea. And he was handing out these coins pretending that they were like these ancient coins from Egypt. But Egypt didn't actually have coins until the 5th century BCE.
Oh God.
He's off by 1,000 years.
Oh man. Let me go back to doing the calculation. Sorry, there weren't those coins. There were something else. There were Noah's coins. There specifically is. All right, we're going to. Oh wait, no, I missed one. I think I did. I don't think I read Johannes, but I'm going to read it again in case I did. Johannes, $5. John, since you lack the shame yourself, we'll have to feel embarrassed for you. All right, thank you so much, Johannes, and everybody that gave us super chats. A lot of super chats today. It's really awesome. It shows a lot of support and helps us do what we continue to do.
Absolutely. And all the people coming in from the deconstruction stream, make sure to show some love to AXP because these guys are out here working hard. They're half the reason why I'm here right now. I wouldn't have been through my deconstruction process as smoothly and well informed as if I wasn't watching the Atheist Experience. These guys were a big help to my process.
Did me too as well. Delivering pies and pizzas and just like, let me pause this real quick. So yeah, 100%. I'm gonna go to Gabe because I just find this to be like really easy to deal with. So Gabe wants to talk about how atheists have no objective morality or standards, so they cannot, talk about like misogyny and that homophobia is wrong and stuff like that. Okay. Do you want to elucidate on that before we tell you why that's kind of confused?
Hey, Justin.
Oh, there he is.
I wanted to ask, how do you respond to like a Christian that says,
I see.
Homophobia, slavery, and misogyny is wrong because atheists have no objective moral standards to.
Can I stop and just to directly apologize to you because I've gotten confused with the John thing, the agnostic thing, and then the Chuck thing, where people have been putting what they are and then just giving us a total curveball. So I was in the same realm there, and I was like, I should have anticipated that maybe you were saying, hey, this is a kind of a typical cliche that's presented. So apologies to you. I wanted to make sure that I got that out to you. So thank you. But yeah, I don't know, Justin, do you want to go first on that? I can probably won't shut up about it. So maybe you
I can summarize my position really easily. So my position is quite simple. If people say that, we don't have a claim to objective morality, I agree. I personally don't believe that objective morals exist. If they do exist, it's on somebody to tell us what they are and how they know what they are. Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is people just want objective morals to exist so that they can point to other people and say that behavior is bad, and it's bad because of this objective standard. But no one can find that objective standard. I understand that it's uncomfortable to realize that morals are inherently social constructs that are subjective in nature. I get it. I know how frustrating that is. But we have no evidence to the contrary. Now, when I tell someone like, hey, you shouldn't be doing that, I am taking into account that this is my opinion, but it just happens to be that my opinion is formed based on past experience and data points and other people's experience, and the fact that as social species that have adapted to our environment and have thrived using these social constructs, when we abandon them, when we abandon some of these moral concepts that have propelled our species to where we are today, then we can expect that our species would die out. And that's inherently something that I think everyone can agree we don't want. We don't want the human race to die out. So when we use morals, just know that I know for sure that they're subjective, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And so I'm like not different from Justin, so I'll take it in different routes so that we can cover a little bit more basis. So that'd be we're not just saying the same thing. Tend to agree with a lot of what you said. The one thing I'd make a difference on is that in the past, I think I've called myself like a subjectivist. I actually don't ascribe to like any of those views because like through my reading on this, it's been pointed out to me on that when you make certain claims like a subjectivist or an error theorist, what comes packaged with that is like a semantic thesis about how people are using the language. I don't think there's a fact of the matter about like when people use moral language that they mean it in like this subjectivist sense, or they mean it in this relativist sense, or whatever kind of, or a realist sense. I think it's like a mix. It's like an indeterministic kind of thing. We can't really, it's going to be case by case. So I think a lot of the moral philosophy there is confused. Now that said, there are views like moral realism that like or moral naturalism or Cornell realism or Jackson realism, or not too well read up on these views. But there are views that don't have God, and there are what are called stance-independent moral facts, which is what you'll see in the meta-ethical literature. You'll see this term a lot, stance-independent moral facts or stance-independent like normative facts. And that's just like saying like mind independent essentially, or like, the shoe exists independent of you. So it's independent of your opinion or your stance about it. I think that that type of view is like on its face, if we could be charitable and make sense of moral realism, that view is perfectly compatible without a God, right? It seems very hard though on the opposite end when you have God as a subject or an agent, and those things like the truth maker of those moral propositions are going to be like desires or things constitutive of his nature. And so it seems like really hard to just square that away with some type of objectivism. So I think that really what's going on is that most theists are presenting some type of subjective meta-ethical view, not realizing it. And an atheist is perfectly, like Sam Harris or someone, I disagree that he's actually establishing a realist view. I think he's just an anti-realist and is confused. But someone like himself is perfectly fine to go out and like pursue this, stance-independent notion of moral facts. I know this is long-winded, but I want to say that a friend of mine, Lance Bush, who does like work on this and like moral, he's got a PhD in like moral psychology. He's a moral philosopher. He does like actual work on this in like the kind of empirical study realm, and shows why he thinks that there's a lot of issues when they do these surveys. And I think like he makes a really good point. He says that when you talk about realism, it's either just going to be something trivial, like something that maximizes our well-being. I can get behind that, but that's not realism. That's just our shared desires and values. It's going to either be gibberish, right? It's going to be unintelligible what you're saying. Like removing the concept of like referentiality to tallerness. Like if I say Justin's taller, and then I go, well, he's not taller than anything else, or he's not taller than he was last week. He's just taller, right? That concept seems really hard to understand. And I think similarly is like the same thing's the case with like morality. The second you untether it from our mind, from our stances, it's not even really clear what you're saying. And that leaves us with the third kind of category I think that these claims will fall into, which is that they're just false. Someone will just say, well, God exists and moral facts only exist because of God. Well, I don't think God exists. I think that those views are false. But that said, I think you can cover pretty much every bit there, right? You can be a subjectivist, a relativist, you could be a realist. None of that matters. Someone's going to have to show a contradiction in the propositions. God doesn't exist and there are stance-independent moral facts. That's their task, and they're not going to be successful at delivering the contradiction in that. So, sorry, long-winded to say you can have it either way. I just think it's unintelligible when people talk about realism. It just sounds like you're saying Justin's taller, but there's no like referentiality built into that concept. I've heard someone use this before, and I really gravitated towards that because it just seems like I don't really know what taller is unless it's tethered to like something like taller than something, you know?
Okay. What literature would you recommend for like meta ethics?
Well, so like yeah, I mean, I would look at like any, like you can look at like really just any like meta ethics, like kind of generic, like kind of introduction to meta ethics that's going to help you. But there are people like Michael Huemer that I don't agree with that are like atheists, but they're also realists, and they give, you know, arguments for their view. I think he kind of has this like phenomenal conservatism view, which is this idea that like your intuitions are justifiers absent defeaters. And so I think he kind of has, from what I understand, this kind of basis of like that these are intuitive and that there's no defeaters for these or something. But he's really good at writing for someone that's like new to philosophy. So I really suggest, even though I disagree with his views, I suggest that he's probably good at an introduction level there. But I'm also kind of bored with meta ethics, so my kind of run out very quick on it. I kind of have a surface level knowledge on it. So.
Okay. Also, this particular question says you can't do science without accepting God. How could I respond to that?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I did want to add one thing to that, because your whole thing was, why? How can you say it's wrong? You have to. This is my bad. I'm like not getting it all straight. So I want to make sure I get this for you. If someone says it's wrong, ask them what they mean. Do you mean that stance independently wrong or stance dependently wrong? Because I can say, I think homophobia is wrong. And they ask me why. I go, well, it's indexed to me. It's indexed to my desires. I think it's wrong, right? And I can give you the reasons, right? Or I see a puppy get kicked and I go, well, I can't even give you reasons. I just intuit that that's wrong. I don't reason myself into that. That's wrong to me. But when they ask, like, you can't say that's wrong, I just fucking did it, right? I just expressed to you brute psychological facts about me that I don't like those things, right? So the mystery to me just goes away.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I was like, oh yeah, this whole needs to be tied back to the, how can you say something like homophobia is wrong? Well, you don't want to entangle wrongness with like two different senses of the term. Do you mean objectively wrong? Do you mean subjectively wrong? Or in the anti-realist sense? If you mean it in the anti-realist sense, I just did it. If you mean it in the realist sense, I don't believe in that. So how is that supposed to like be hung over my head?
Okay. All right. Well, I guess
anything else?
Very much. Have a good show.
Yeah.
No, that's it. Have a good show.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Yeah. Sorry, I could have been more concise with that. I was trying to get back to that whole point of it, which is important, that once you make this distinction between stance independent or stance dependent, in other words, we can just use for brevity, objective versus subjective. Once you have that in mind, then when someone makes statements like murder is wrong, well, like if you asked me this question and I said, well, no, I don't think it's wrong. And then someone goes, oh my God, like what's wrong with you? And I go, oh, well, I thought you were asking me in the realist sense, like, because I'm telling you I deny objective morality. So it makes me look like a horrible person. But if you meant it in the way that like I mean it, does JMike think it's wrong? Oh yeah, I think it's wrong. I thought you meant, is it wrong full stop? I just don't know that sentence makes sense to say that. Yeah,
I agree. And it smuggles in the idea that there is an objective right or wrong that we already admitted that we're not adhering to.
Exactly. So when that's put over your head, it's really annoying. And Lance Bush does like a really good job at this, being like, I don't know why I'm supposed to be like threatened by this kind of thing I think is false that's like hanging over my head. Like, but then you can't do this thing. It's like, look, I have vegan friends that are anti-realists, and they do a really good job making me question my views, okay? And I'm not a vegan. So they're anti-realists can do that. They can get within your own system and show you you're an inconsistent mess.
Right,
Not hard to do. Not hard to do.
Yep.
So I think we got time for another call. Do you have call in studio up? I don't know if you wanted to take. I just was assuming
I
you
don't
did.
have the studio, but it sounds like the next time I'm on, I'll have access to it.
Awesome. Well, let's see. I kind of like I have a choice here, but this one seems to be more your bag, and so I want to go with that one.
Sure.
So we're going to go with Jim in Missouri. It's Jesus did not change the laws and rules of Christianity. It was the discovery of the New World by Europeans. I'm wondering if maybe you guys have something to talk about that, or if they can express what they're getting at a little bit more.
Yes. So, yeah. Hey guys. Hey guys.
Hey, Jim.
The reason I say that it was the discovery of the New World that changed the laws of Christianity was, if you actually read the Bible, nowhere does Jesus say, okay, these laws are changed, out with the old, in with the new. No, he said, I'm here to uphold every jot and tittle of the Bible. Yeah. All those Old Testament laws, they're still here. But when Christopher Columbus discovered,
but have you read Paul's writings?
Yes, and really, but you have to understand, Paul's writings, they were all written, 20 years after supposedly Jesus lived. How the hell did he know what he was saying?
Right, that's what I'm saying. Christians are getting this from the Bible, because Paul clearly teaches that the law was temporary until Jesus came. In fact, if you go to Galatians chapter 3, it says, now before faith came, we were imprisoned and guarded under the law of faith until it would be revealed. Therefore, until faith would be revealed. Therefore, the law was our disciplinarian until Christ came. And he repeats this elsewhere. And this coincides with Acts chapter 15, when they actually have a meeting. Paul meets up with the disciples in Acts chapter 15, and they discuss how Peter saw the sheet coming down with the clean and unclean animals. And God said that now, all of these things are clean for you. And then the Spirit descends upon the Gentiles, and they start speaking in tongues. And they discuss all of this in Acts chapter 15, and they decide that it must be true that the Gentiles don't actually have to follow the law of Moses. And it says in verse 19 in Acts chapter 15, therefore, I have reached the decision that we should not trouble those Gentiles who are turning to God, but we should write to them to abstain only from things polluted by idols, from sexual immorality, and from whatever has been strangled from blood. So that's the rules that they give to the Gentiles.
Well, I think a lot of that was also to try to mainstream it for Roman consumption, because let's be honest, when you take over a country, you don't get rid of everything that they have. You keep some things just so that they can, that they'll go along to get along. But getting back to what I was saying, when they discovered the New World, you have to understand, back then Christians were killing other religions and even in their own religion, because they couldn't quite agree on how the scriptures were written.
Of course.
I mean, look at John Calvin and Servetus. They disagreed.
John Calvin wanted to execute people over in Geneva.
Right, you're dead.
Yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden, the New World gets discovered, and all of a sudden everybody had another choice. Okay, we can stay here, practice a different religion, even if it's Christianity, it's a different form of Christianity, but the powers that be might come and kill us. Or we can
Christianity,
go to the New World, where they have to come find us, which they're not going to do, and we can practice whatever we want. And then once they landed in the New World, they made another very startling discovery. There's a lot of land here. You just have to, get rid of the indigenous population.
Right. But what I'm saying is that Christianity, far before the settlers came to America, had already determined that they don't need to follow the laws written in Moses. Like, if you just read the writings of the early church, it's pretty clear that they're not following them and that they believe what the New Testament says about them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, but a lot of those were details. All of a sudden, again, now they're in this new world.
Hey, man, what the church fathers say is what they say. I mean, you talk to Christians, they're all about that.
Well, then they were discovering these colonies, and when people would come, they might say, right, some another ship of Lutherans, but then going to this one colony, I think, yeah, but they're Calvinists and they might kill us because we don't worship God exactly, precisely, 100% the same way that they do. So why the hell are we going to there? We can go to a different part of this world and then set up there. It could be miles away, and all of a sudden there could be this letter that says, hey, having a wonderful time. Glad you're not here, asshole. You have to come, if you want to kill us, you have to come find us. That's a long walk. This was before, trains and planes and cars and stuff. And they're like, and the settlers that were in this colony, they might think, yeah, that ship may have had people we needed, such as, farmers and blacksmiths and craftsmen and teachers and women, or sensitive men you could use as women, whatever.
I'm kind of, it seems like though that Justin's giving you these reasons and you're still like not addressing those
I don't
things.
think he heard what I said.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the New Testament is clearly like unified in this particular topic. Hebrews chapter 7, in fact, talks about how the priesthood of the Levites are replaced by the priesthood of Jesus. Through the order of Melchizedek. And it says, for when there is a change in priesthood, there is necessarily a change in the law as well. And the whole book of Hebrew goes into why the old law was insufficient. The old law wasn't good enough to actually accomplish the long-term goal that God was seeking. And therefore, it was replaced by a new law and a new priest through Jesus Christ. So the New Testament is thorough, once you get past Jesus, obviously, is thoroughly against the law. The problem we have is that Jesus wasn't. In Matthew chapter 7, he's clearly a Judaizer, and he clearly means what he says about people following the law. And elsewhere in Matthew and the other Gospels, he even talks to the rich young ruler and to elsewhere that say, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And he says, follow the law. So we've got this tension in the New Testament because they were writing apart from each other. They didn't know what each other were saying. Half of the New Testament had no idea what Jesus taught because they didn't live when he was alive. They're writing at a different time period than him. So they take positions that they like, that Jesus himself, if you believe in the historical Jesus, didn't hold himself. And that's how you know that this book is not from God, because even Jesus and the so-called, apostle to the Gentiles and the other authors in the New Testament claiming to hear from God can't agree with each other. So,
right, and that's what I'm saying. Many of the, in ancient time, in the medieval times, they were killing each other. The Catholics were killing the Protestants were killing the Catholics, the Protestants were killing the Protestants because they couldn't quite agree on how he said it. They
but that's not necessarily why they were doing it.
Said this.
You know what I mean? Like a lot of it was
what they were telling the people.
Well, a lot of what happened during the Reformation was an issue of the Catholic Church saying you're either with us or you're against us. And right now you have to be with us because the Turks are coming. And if we don't have a unified front against the incursion by the Turks coming from the East, the whole Western Empire is going to fall. And so anytime you had breakaways from the Holy Roman Empire at that time period, they took it very seriously. And when the Anabaptists in the middle of the 1500s started baptizing adults and teaching them to leave the Catholic Church, they took that very seriously because they saw that as the empire falling apart. But to your point, the Christians, the Protestants some of them were executing heretics just the same way that the Catholics were. But I don't think any of this really gets to the point because none of this is actually about the law. And maybe I'm confused. I thought we were talking about how the law was practiced within Christianity as it relates to the coming of people to America. But I don't, the people who came to America, I don't find that they had a different belief about the law than anyone in Christianity that came before them.
Well, no. Here's what was going on. What they were is they were leaving the European nations because, again, they were being killed for not believing this exactly the same way. So they thought, why are we staying here? We got we can leave. we can go to this other world. And then once they got here, they realized they had to get people to come here. So they were like, okay, we're not going to kill you because you believe different than we do, because we need you. We need to get people here to form a society. It was that attraction. How do we get people to come here?
Like, to me, it sounds like I understand like how you put those things like A to B to C. Like I get how you're doing that, but like I just, outside of like, Jim's conjecture, I don't really know what worth it like would be, right? Because it just seems like it seems like Justin's giving you kind of direct stuff that's it's not really ambiguous, and then you're kind of like, well, but there could have been this thing, and it's kind of like shades of one of the callers we had earlier, where like with Mike, where it's just kind of like sounds like you want to really work hard to add that to it, but I don't really see any reason to accept that. I mean, Justin, am I getting this wrong?
No, I don't think so. I'm not really sure he's addressing the point, and it's starting to become unclear what the end goal of this dialogue is for. Like what's the
well, it's just
so like when I was in my freshman history class, we had to write a lot of essays, and my teacher always said, formulate your conclusion, and then you can support your conclusion with paragraphs of support. So it sounds like you started with your paragraphs, but we don't actually know what your conclusion is. We have no idea what you're actually trying to say at the moment. Can you like tell us what your conclusion is, and then give us the support for that conclusion?
Well, the conclusion is that, let's be honest. Christians aren't killing, each other or other religions because of differences. At least that's what they.
Hold on, Jim. Hold on, Jim. I gotta stop you. Justin's looking for the conclusion. So what you might be doing now is what I did on the meta-ethics thing a little while ago, where I went on like a tangent for a while and I had to come back, and it happens, and I completely get it. I do it all the time. But we want like just a direct kind of conclusion so that he can kind of marinate on that and then get the reasons. Otherwise, you're giving Justin a lot of work to do right now in his head,
Well, it's basically.
So what's the conclusion?
Bible that we now. Well, now there are things, now in 2024, there are parts of the Bible that we basically ignore. And we say, hey, don't read that part, because of, we're much more civilized now. And it is because we discovered America. And by the time we finally, settled from sea to shining sea, everybody thought to themselves, okay, we were supposed to do something, which was probably, create a faith-based theocracy. And they had forgotten, because it took them almost 200 years to do. And they're like, oh, we forgot. What are we supposed to do again?
Because I just don't see that in history, is what I'm saying. Like as early as we have, our earliest Christian texts all affirm that they believe what the New Testament position of the law was. In fact, in the Epistle of Barnabas, he literally says, "For he has revealed to us by all the prophets that he needs neither sacrifice nor burnt offerings nor oblations. He has therefore abolished these things, that the new law of our Lord Jesus Christ, which is without the yoke of necessity, might have a human oblation." So from the beginning of Christianity to modern times, the position of the law has been very clear, which is it is not for Christians, it was for the Jew.
But at the same time, a lot of the, Paul and after the Gospels, these were, and even the Gospels, they were written years, decades after all this supposedly happened. So they have no idea.
I'm aware.
But you're been just.
I'm aware. I agree with you, but your hypothesis is about what the settlers did with the Bible when they came to America. It's not about whether or not the New Testament authors got it right. I don't think they did. I think they got it wrong. But the conversation right now is about why the settlers reinterpreted Christianity when they came to America. And I don't see that happening in history. All of Christian history that we have seems to be suggesting that they routinely understood that the law was done away with.
Well, they were changing things because, again, they had to get people to leave Europe and form the society here in America. Now, again, if you're saying, again, that's why they said, okay, we're going to separate church and state, because they realized we got to give you an incentive to come here.
But the Anabaptists created that. Have you read the 7 Confessions of the Anabaptists or the Schleitheim Confessions? This is a Christian thing. The Reformation invented the separation of church and state because they wanted the European government out of their religion. Stop telling me how to practice my religion. That happened way before people came to America.
Well, I also think a lot of it was also because, because again, some of it was not as blatant. The church still had a lot of power back then, even during the Reformation. Then all of a sudden, again, we find this new area where somebody could say, even if you were a different religion and you came to my colony, they could maybe try to fake it until they could get enough material to go west and, hide out, a situation of, I'm a different Christian than you are. Bye-bye.
Yeah, Jim, I'm going to have to.
He's got to die. You got to find me.
Jim, I'm going to have to cut it at this point, just because I don't see you guys agreeing. If I'm from an outside viewer, I'm siding with Justin here, and that's not just because I'm co-hosting. He gave very specific things, and it just seemed like you were working really hard to have the hypothesis that you have work out. But I don't know. It seems like what you should do with some ideas, see, try to see how it's false potentially. And Justin's a great person to show you that. And so, I think that I don't know. I think the progress or the success here would be for you to just realize that this hypothesis right at the moment isn't really founded on anything compared to, alternative explanations like Justin has given. So, I mean, that's just my.
Well, agree to disagree.
I do. Yeah, sure. That's fine. Appreciate it, Jim. We're gonna move on. Oh, sorry. That was my bad. Just wanted to get the seal done there. We are going to end it here. I apologize if we did not get you called back. Next week we're on any of the hosts, or if you want to call back when I'm on. I think I'm on the 9th, I believe. So I'll be back here. Justin will be on as well. In fact, Justin is a new host, if you didn't know that. So we want to give everybody give Justin a warm welcome. And I think the super chats and all that stuff and all the stuff they've said is it's already been shown. But yeah, continue showing that support. We really, really appreciate it. And just remember, everybody, that the prompt for this week was, what would Jesus do? Wrong answers only. Please be sure to get your answers in the comments, not the live chat here at the end. And it might be read at the beginning of next week's episode. We also want to thank my boy, our backup, Ben, for helping us out today. Let's bring Ben on. Ben does at the ACA does the Wednesday night philosophy night, right? Yeah, that's right. So if you are in the Austin area, go see Ben. Ben's good at that stuff. So we talk a little Phil, not as much as we should. We should talk more Phil, Ben. But I don't know. Hopefully people noticed in this episode that I've tried to drop a lot. I've tried to, and I feel better. I feel like a weight's been lifted off me. So maybe there's a new JMike in store for everybody. I don't know. No, I do appreciate everybody's patience as I try to amend some of my language. But yeah, please go see Ben, talk philosophy. Yeah, philosophical faith. Yeah, but please go see Ben, and hopefully we'll have you on a show here soon, Ben.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be on Truth Wanted this coming Friday, so check it out.
Yeah, but but it's not AXP though. I mean, come on, we're competing with Truth Wanted, obviously.
I got to work my way up to the big leagues.
No, we love it. We love Dan. We love everybody. So thank you everybody for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. I do want to mention, unfortunately, we had a Patreon supporter that is no longer with us, and we want to end out this show in memoriam to them for their dedicated support to us. And we hope that everybody out there can take in, that life is fragile and we don't necessarily have tomorrow for, guaranteed for us. And so just anyone out there that has supported us, anybody that in the future that supports us, we might not know, when you leave the earth. And so we want to let you know that your dedication and support is greatly, greatly admired, and we appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next week.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your eyes.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.